Okay. All right, let's begin with our centering and grounding. And then I have a teaching talk prepared for you today. And then we're going to do some meditation together as well. Let's start just by feeling into the support of the earth underneath us, the always waiting earth. And just feel the stability, the stillness, the openness, and the vastness. And notice how you are not separate from those qualities, how those qualities, when you open to them, start to enter into your body and your being. You can feel that particularly in your spine. As your spine lengthens up, the back of your neck opens. Your ears come over your shoulders. There's a slight tuck in your chin, elbows under your shoulders. You can just let your teeth part and your tongue float in your mouth. And let yourself just be in your body and soften into this too. Let there be a softness about it. And become aware of your breath. And then just notice how the phrases of our mantra resonate, or also just feel how they land in your body. So there may be some resonance, there may be some kind of pushing up against it. And whatever happens is fine. It's just feedback. Remembering I am intrinsically good without exception, and that I've been given this precious opportunity in my unique life. I find ways to engage in daily practice in my everyday life. When I open to the vastness, stillness, silence, peace, and stability of the earth, that vastness, stillness, silence, peace, and stability opens into my body and being. And remembering that my heart is open, tender, and responsive, I enter into my relationships in my everyday life. And then let's just take a moment to remember those who came before us in the place where we sit. So I just want to acknowledge the ancestors of the land. Just take a moment to feel the spirit of the place where you are sitting. I acknowledge the ancestors of the land, and where I live, for each one of us, this will be unique. Where I live, it's the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations of the Coast Salish people. Also, I acknowledge the ancestors of the teachings, all those teachers who have generously given their lives to the teachings, to the study of the, the Dharma, and who have passed these teachings on through the generations. And also to our direct ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents who have passed on the gift of life force energy and chi that allows us to be alive today so that we may be here, so that we can wake up, so that we can be illuminated together as a community. And as we come together as a community, all the agreements we make together in our larger community, we make together in our circle here, that we practice ahimsa by speaking from our own experience, using the words I, not you, and honoring each person's own unique and precious life. So knowing there's no need to fix or change anybody or offer advice. Okay, so this morning we are going to spend some time speaking about what we're going to be settling into in November, which are the 4 principles of yin. And I'm really excited to absorb myself in these principles in November. And so I wanted to, and I hope you are too, I wanted to tell you a personal story about my experience of really awakening to these principles in a very real way, and also realizing that they're part of my life, rather than just something that I do on a yoga mat. And so this happened probably about a year ago only. I had been practicing yin yoga for 3.5 years here in Victoria. Prior to that, yin yoga hadn't been something that had been really accessible to me. Yin yoga is really big here on the West Coast, in here on the island in particular. I'm not sure about on the mainland, but it's really big here in on the island. And when I arrived, I started taking yin classes, and I have to say with my kind of, with all the kind of everything that I carried with me from the East Coast, from Toronto, with me, I looking back, I really didn't get yin yoga. It took a really long time for me to settle into it. I kind of brought all that aggressiveness with me into the yin classes, very young attitude into yin classes. So I've been studying yin yoga with some teachers here, and not very long into my time here, maybe about 6 months into my time here, one of my students here introduced me to Carly Forrest, and I started going to her classes, and I knew I'd really found my teacher, my yin teacher, and that's who I'm going on a retreat with in 18 days, not that I'm counting. And you know, that she just really lives these principles very fully, and there's a real depth to her study of them, and yeah, she just fully embodies them. And so after about 3.5 years, about a year ago, I did some teacher training with her. So that was a very long process of coming to as well. It was something that, you know, I was starting to see online. There was some momentum gathering around it, and I was resistant to step into that momentum. It was, so it took me a long time to make that decision to do that. But anyway, eventually I stepped in, and it was definitely the right decision. I think it's definitely where I should be. But at the beginning of the teacher training, Carly spent a lot of time, and this is just how much I was not connected with Yin at this time. Because I kept thinking, when is she going to get to explaining? I really, there was so much about Yin I didn't understand at this point, but I kept thinking, when is she going to get to explaining the way that the it works with the fascia and the connective tissue, and how Yin gets to that, because I still didn't understand that after 3.5 years of studying Yin. And so at the beginning, she was spending so much time covering yin yang theory, the concept of yin, and the principles of yin. I mean, we spent probably a whole day on that. And in that sort of long time, which is one of the principles of yin, stay for a while, that stillness and softness. So there's 3 principles of yin right there. In those principles of yin, of applying them to yin and opening to yin, they really started to seep in. And in that day, there was this kind of dimmer switch that kind of brightened, and a realization that started to get brighter and brighter and brighter. So there's this illumination that started to happen. And I realized that I was not living these principles at all in my life, not at all. I realized it was just a huge insight. As I said, slowly, I was resistant to it. Like there was this dimmer switch that just started to slowly, gradually illuminate. I realized over the course of coming to understand these principles, and the way she was speaking about them, which we'll start to speak about here in a few moments, that I was really relying on this tiny corner in my life of my yoga and meditation practice. So let's say 1 hour out of 24, to bring that yin balance into my life. So, and then the other 23 hours of my life, I was living in an incredibly yang and aggressive way. So an hour of gentleness to balance out 23 hours of aggression. And let's maybe do the math on that too. Let's look at the years of my life too. So let's do rough math. I think I'm almost 46 now. So let's say 43 years of aggression to balance out. I mean, like, it was ridiculous, right? I don't know. I can't even do the math on that. But really, a lot of years of aggression, of just living incredibly aggressively, very yang, and then an hour of day to balance it out. Like, it just, the math just did not, if you have that kind of objective mind, it just didn't measure up, right? It couldn't even possibly work. There couldn't possibly be balance. So in November, my intention as your teacher and also our carriers of the teachings is to bring these 4 principles of yin into your life in a very comprehensive and thorough way. So let's take a look at them. And the first principle is edge, which is just such an unfortunate word because, you know, one of the things that is, yeah, pages here. One of the things when we spoke about them with the teachers, Paige said, like edge is like that razor's edge, like on a knife, and it just has a very yang connotation. And so maybe over the course of the month in our conversations, we can redefine this. We can come up with another word as a community. I think that it's almost like a sweet spot. I really like the word middle way because I think they get at what edge is a lot more appropriately. Because to me, edge really fails to acknowledge the sensitivity and the gentleness of us required to back off of that kind of yang tendency in our lives to accelerate, to push through, to go for it, to really just, you know, succeed at all costs and find the spaciousness in the sensation, both in our bodies and on our mats and in our lives. So the middle way, it acknowledges more a continuum, right? Between comfort at one end and challenge on the other. So without any challenge in our lives, we fall into complacency. We become too comfortable, we lose interest, our focus fades. It's really no good to have no challenge. With too much stress, we become more tense and anxious, and we fight our restrictions, and we become exhausted. So it's important to find that middle way. The middle way really develops resilience. So from challenge, we experience change, and from comfort comes ease. But too much challenge, we become broken and depleted. We experience that feeling of not good enough. But too much comfort, we become passive and complacent and fragile. So we really need that middle way, that place where we can back off, we can settle, we can be curious about sensations, and we can lessen our ambitions. And when we come to that place, we can go deeper. It's really about being skillful and responsible and sensitive. And this is not just in our practice, right? This is in our lives too. So can we do this on our mats, and can we do this off our mats? Can we allow our lives to be nourishing, reviving, and nurturing, right? Not to the point that we become passive and complacent and fragile, but there's that place in the middle, that sweet spot. So that's the first principle. And we'll spend a week on each one of these. But as you know, I'm going to go over all 4 principles because this is our last time together in this way, in this format. The second principle is to be still. And in yoga, and I've spent a lot of time talking about this in the classes that I've been teaching lately, because in yin yoga, we become still so that we can move the chi, we can coax the chi deeper down into the bones and the connective tissues and into the energy body, into the meridian channels. If you keep moving, it stays at the surface level. And just taking a week to contemplate these things and taking time to contemplate each of these principles. I've been contemplating this stillness one, and even just that little piece of stillness. If you keep moving, it stays at the surface level. I think a lot of the movement that we experience does keep our experience on the surface level, where we experience that kind of restlessness and tension and anxiety. But when we become still, we can drop deeper into our true self, into the vastness and the openness and spaciousness, where we experience the bliss, where we experience all that is. And within that space, there's room for everything to come up. It's not that things don't happen. It's just that we're not as unsettled as if we're just constantly moving, constantly going. And then, if you're at this at that surface level all the time, then what happens is then you really just get stuck there. You get stuck there with the you get stuck with the waves of life rather than going deep and finding that real settling. I do have some words from John O'Donohue for you for this. He talks about stillness a lot, and he talks about how as human beings, we need time and stillness each day. And I think that he talks about how we need time and stillness, silence, and solitude. And I think stillness implies that kind of silence and solitude. And I'll let his words speak, because when we take that time in stillness, we're able to open up to something bigger than just all this kind of surface level energy that's going on. And it opens us up to something much deeper, much vaster, much more nourishing, much more healing. And it's available to all of us, but it does require us to be still. So John O'Donohue says that human identity is complex. Nothing is ever given simply or immediately. So that speaks to the fourth principle of staying for a while. We can't just be still for 10 seconds and expect that we will, receive that experience of vastness. Even the simplest act of perception has many layers. Time and memory often reveal things later that were staring us in the eye, but we never notice them. The quest for the truth of things is never ending. To be human is to be ambivalent. Every experience is open to countless readings and interpretations. We never see a thing completely. In sure anticipation, our eyes have already altered what awaits our gaze. The search for truth is difficult and uncomfortable. Because the mystery is too much for us, we may opt to settle for the surface of things. Comfort becomes more important than true presence. This is precisely why we need to hear the discerning voice. Somewhere in the heart, there is a discerning voice. This voice distrusts the status quo. It sounds out the falsity in things and encourages dissent from the images things tend to assume. It underlines the secret crevices where the surface has become strained. It advises distance and opens up a new perspective through which the concealed meaning of a situation might emerge. Its intention is to keep the heart clean and clear. This voice is an inner whisper, not obvious or known to others outside. Yet much depends on that small voice. The truth of its whisper marks the line between honor and egoism, kindness and chaos. In extreme situations which have been emptied out of all shelter and tenderness, that small voice whispers from somewhere beyond and encourages the heart to hold out for dignity, respect, beauty, and love. That whisper brings forth forgotten nobility into an arena where the voiceless has been introduced everything. This faithful voice can illuminate the dark lands of despair. It becomes both the sign and presence of transcendence that no force or horror can extinguish. Each day in the world, in the prisons, hospitals, and killing fields, against all odds, this still, small voice continues to echo the beauty of the human being. In haunted places, this voice carries the light of beauty like a magician lantern to transform desolation, to remind us that regardless of what may be wrenched from us, there's a dignity and hope that we do not have to lose. This voice brings us directly into contact with the inalienable presence of the beauty in the soul. Okay, so the third principle that I want to speak about is to be soft. And I want to speak a little bit about this one because this is another one that can be tricky, right? We can kind of impose a softness on our life, but I want to speak about it because I feel like it's only in knowing the shadow side of softness or gentleness or tenderness that I have been able to embody these qualities. So I would say for many, many years, my practice, both yoga and meditation, was quite aggressive. There's a real kind of aggressiveness to it. You know, like I would just fight and push and fight and push. And I just ask you guys to save the chats to the end because I do find them a little distracting when I'm teaching. So unless it's urgent, like my mic is cut out or some that you can't hear me, can you just save them to the end? Okay, so gentleness and softness. So only in knowing the aggression that I've come to know the gentleness. So I want to say when we come to this week of softness, that let's become aware of the shadow side of softness, right? Let's welcome in the aggression in our lives. Because in really understanding and knowing and becoming familiar with the aggression, that is the biggest gift in my experience. In really understanding the aggression, we can, it's like that through the aggression, through the lack of softness, through the pushing, we can understand how to become soft. So it's not about not being soft. It's not about trying to be soft. It's about opening to what is, right? So if softness is not there, we notice that softness is not there. And it's in that noticing that the medicine is already there, right? That in noticing, so say when you're in meditation and there's a lot of kind of pushing and striving or holding, it's in that moment of noticing that pushing or striving or holding that the medicine is already available to you, that the softness can happen. Same thing in your life. When you notice that the aggression is showing up in your body, in your interactions with other people, that is the greatest gift. It's in coming to know that in a very deep way that you can that the softness comes forward, So it's not like we're trying to become perfect, soft people. It's that we come to know both sides of it. And only in really knowing our aggression that we can know our softness as well, our gentleness and our tenderness. And then the fourth one, the fourth principle is stay for a while. And I feel like this is a really important principle. They're all important, but I feel like this is a very important principle in our life as well. So often we're moving on to the next thing. Even when we're doing something, we're thinking about the next thing. So this can be a really interesting practice as well, that when you are doing something, to see that you are fully doing it, even mentally, right? So we can think, well, when I'm doing something, but then you're actually thinking about the next thing too. Often I give the example here, when you go for acupuncture, the acupuncturist doesn't just put the needles in and then pull them out. When we stay for a while, it coaxes the chi deeper into the body and the organs. It has a hugely profound effect on the body, on the healing of your body. If we're always moving on to the next thing, we miss the magic of what's happening right here. If you hear yourself saying nothing is happening, then you've missed the magic of staying for a while. And there is magic and mystery in it, but we do need to be soft enough and still enough and find that middle way. Otherwise, we don't find the magic, the mystery in what's here when we stay for a while. And the whole culture encourages this kind of unending momentum, right? Just continuous momentum. Even things as simple as having lights on when it gets dark. It encourages us to just keep going and going and going. And then other things like sugar and caffeine, right? We just have to be these constant energizer bunnies. But yin asks us to stay for a while and honor the natural rhythms of our body. Even our spiritual practices can be these kind of constant improvement projects, right? And a constant need to keep moving. So I have a couple more quotes for you about staying for a while. This one's from, and I will post these for you guys because you've asked about that. This one's from Matt Licata from The Path is Everywhere. And he says, your life is not an unending self-improvement project, and your heart is not a venture to be undertaken, mastered, and completed. Perhaps today was never going to be the day when you figured it all out, got your questions all answered, or resolved the contradictions. It's just too wild for all that. It's just too creative, just too alive. And I think when we stay for a while, we get a chance to feel into the wildness and the creativeness and the aliveness of what's happening. Today may not be a day for answers, but to let your heart break open to the vastness of the question, to fall to the ground as a humble lover of the mystery, and to listen once again. And then from John O'Donohue, give yourself time to make a prayer that will become the prayer of your soul. Listen to the longing in your soul. Listen to your hungers. Give attention to the unexpected that lives around the rim of your life. Listen to your memory and to the inrush of your future, to the voices of those near you and to those you have lost. Out of all of that attention to your soul, make a prayer that is big enough for your wild soul, yet tender enough for your shy and awkward vulnerability, that has enough healing to gain the ointment of divine forgiveness for your wounds, enough truth and vigor to challenge your blindness and complacency, enough graciousness and vision to mirror your immortal beauty. Write a prayer that is worthy of the destiny to which you have been called. So the 4 principles of Yin that we're going to spend time with in our lives are to find that middle way, right? Just back off a bit. Find that middle way to be still, be soft, and to stay for a while. And that's what our focus is going to be for November. So I'm going to open up the lines and see if there are any questions at this time.
I don't have a question, but I'm very curious to this month because I recognize a lot in what you say about my attitude towards yin is also very aggressive. I want to grasp it, I want to get it, I want to understand it, and I want to do it quickly. And it's really, a lot of times when I do yin classes, I come out exhausted. So for me, it's really important now to open up to it, what it's really, because I think it's very important for me at the moment, but also for the rest of my life. So very, I'm interested. I need it, and it's good to know that I'm not the only one who thinks it's difficult, because it is for me.
I think the thing I find about yin is, again, like you say, it's finding that middle line, finding the softness, because I want to feel like I've done something and I want to feel an ache in one part of my body. And if I don't, I kind of think, have I been too soft on myself? Have I not worked hard enough? So I think for me, it's finding that middle line and the way it all links in together, and being soft and knowing my shadow side of, as Melissa says, like the aggression of my practice is actually finding the shadow sign of, I want to be working hard, I want that aggression, and finding the softer side of, do you know what, it's fine, it will come. I think I'm stuck in that little cycle at the moment, and it's finding ways around the cycle, finding my way off that Ferris wheel.
Yeah, let's just take a moment to unpack this, because I think it's really important. We have been culturally conditioned that we have to strive to achieve, that if there's no pain, there's no gain. And yin is completely different. This kind of yang excess is one of the reasons why many of us are exhausted and depleted. So what is happening when we are embodying the qualities of yin in our lives, and let's just take that step back, just because when we are doing a yin class is something completely different. We absolutely do not want to come out of a yin class exhausted. And we absolutely do not want to come out of a yin class feeling something, feeling a burn, feeling like I put my body through something. Because if we have, we've completely missed the point. Right? And I want to be clear about that in a very yang way. And I will be clear about that in a very yang way. Because yin is open, receptive, and surrendering and receiving. And so it's completely not a striving practice. What you are doing in your yin practice is cultivating qi. And so if you are working to make anything happen, there's going to be absolutely no cultivation of qi. You're actually just going to blow your qi out, right? Because you're just staying at the surface level. You're not going to be receiving anything from this practice. You're not going to get down to the deeper layers of the connective tissue. You're not going to be moving that qi through the meridian lines at all. Yin is a very advanced practice. It requires this sensitivity and it requires a great deal of intentionality to be able to find that middle way, so that you aren't pushing past that point of, qi is very, very subtle, right? If you're blowing past it, you're doing a lot of harm. What we're doing here is very beautiful, very profound, and very potent. And so it's not something to take lightly.
So sometimes during a yin practice, I can almost feel like energies moving through me as well. Like I'll get a tip when we look, particularly in like the kidney meridian, when we practice like the Sphinx pose where we're influencing the kidney meridian, I almost feel like a tingly sensation. So would you say that's the chi moving to where, or is that just me recognizing the chi is moving?
Well, I'd say that question says the same thing in different ways, right? So yes.
Yeah.
I feel like yin requires a little bit more mindfulness in the practice, where you're constantly going back and thinking about what you're doing and keeping an open mind to that, like meditation almost, just rechecking yourself.
Right, and so to be able to take those principles into your life means being incredibly mindful in your life as well.
Mm-hmm.
I find I'm really craving a lot of solitude.
Pardon, Lucia?
I'm craving solitude and making sure that I have it. Whereas before, I think it was more hit and miss, and I don't want to socialize. It kind of feels like it's transferring into my living, my yoga.
I would I would say I can really relate to that. That the more deeply you start to live these principles, the more room you need for them in your life too. That's been my experience. And then it's sort of like life starts to rearrange itself so that that happens too. Has that been your experience?
Yeah. I'm responding to situations very differently than I would have before in practice. And that surprises me, but it's calming other people around me, so I like that.
Can you speak up a bit? I'm really having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry.
Okay.
I find that it's making me calmer, and that I'm responding differently than I would have before Yin, the things in my life that are happening. And I can see that it's calming other people around me.
Mm.
I don't want to go out and socialize, and not that I did a lot before, but it's been noted by other people. Oh, you're never available, but I want to be in solitude.
Mm.
I think that what we're saying makes sense, and particularly this focusing on the middle ground, on the middle way, because one of the things that I'm noticing is it's actually funny because there's the awareness that comes as a change starts to come, right? So I don't think that my life is any busier than it's ever been. In fact, I think it's starting to be less busy. And yet I'm sort of overwhelmed by the sheer volume and speed of things to do, things that I think I have to do, things that I have. And what I believe is true is, and I find it anxiety producing and intolerable, right? But I can't change it all at once. I have to take the middle ground in terms of that as well. But what I do think happens or is happening in my life and my practice is this awareness is the awareness. And it's in the awareness that the change starts to come. The mindfulness versus the mindlessness. And then beginning to let go. And as things let go, I'm finding that there's actually a movement. There's a movement. There's an internal and external movement of chi, of things moving, shifting, of letting go and bringing in. That feels very, very much like a river, very deep, not surface level. Although it would be very easy to hop up on the surface and just sort of surf the wave, to make quick changes or to. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it's I'm really I like the phrase middle ground or middle way. Another way that I've started thinking about it in my practice is the space between, just that's the sweet spot between, you've used that phrase as well, Melissa, between striving and resting or something. I can't remember actually. I'm sorry, but I like the phrase middle way, and I'm really looking forward to spending a month looking at that in our practices on and off our mats, in our meditation, yoga, and in life. Actually, Melissa, I have a question, and this might not be the place to address it, but I was talking with a yoga teacher recently this was an interesting thought to me, and it brings me, I think for me, it particularly resonates when I think about yin yoga. She said, coming to yoga mindlessly, like if we're so overwhelmed and we're so wound up or disconnected or whatever, she said, maybe taking a walk. But it was very interesting. She said, taking the time before practice to come into ourselves, to come into our practice is, and now I'm not going to be able to bring succinct words to it. Do you kind of get where she was going? That mindful practice is the practice, and that if we're just, if we're running the energy, there are better places to take the running of the energy, maybe into the earth, into the woods, into nature, and not necessarily to bring that onto our mats and to use our practice as a kind of a quote unquote cure for that. I just thought it was interesting. Wanted to talk with you about it, but not sure this is very important. But there does seem to be some little way. It seems to relate to being able to sit in that middle way, to be mindful enough to see that I'm not collapsing onto my mat in exhaustion. And I'm not, and the yoga is good. I'm not saying that any style of yoga is preferential, but there does seem that idea seems to speak to this question of middle way, having the discernment to see where striving begins and where not attending or not being with the practice is as well. I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, and I think that it's something that perhaps we'll talk about in the next couple of weeks when we do the open house for the new site, because it's about coming, especially because we actually, whether we are aware of it or not, we actually practice together in a virtual studio, right? So we are coming into a shared space when we practice. So I think there is a middle way to be mindful of here as well, because I think what can happen with a statement like that is that it can be an excuse for not practicing as well. And I do think that we can bring whatever is arising to our practice, but I also think that, and you guys can see that there are rituals and structures in place so that you can come to your practice in a way that is mindful, so that you're not, so that this energy isn't running amok when you come to practice. Right, so that you're doing it in a very focused and intentional way.
I like in one of your previous teach talks on the meditation, you said about bookending your practice. I've been very focused on bookending, and It's made a huge difference to my practice. Absolutely huge.
Right, and we have things in place we do bookend our practices, right? It's just being conscious of it, right? We bookend it with our centering and grounding, and those things are in place that we do ask you to, when you come in and practice a class with us, that you do that. Whether you guys do or not, that's sort of up to you. And then when we leave, there should be at least a shavasana at very least, right? So there are, the bookends are there. It's just being very conscious of them. So yeah, but we will go through that next week for sure. And then there are times when we are so caught up that it is too difficult for us to come to mat, and at which time it may be more appropriate step maybe to take a walk at that time, right? But I think it's very tricky. You have to be very careful to because there are just, it's way too easy not to practice. And the truth is that whatever is happening, whether it's very difficult what's happening in your life, or whether it's very wonderful what's happening in our life, we can always practice. And I only have to look into our community for inspiration around this. There are members in our community who are going through incredibly difficult things and still showing up on their mat and finding strength in that, right? You can see that in our community. And the opposite is true too. We can see how there are people that just, just will find whatever reason not to practice too, right? And if there's that commitment there, that they could be buoyed and lifted in the same way that the people that are coming, no matter how difficult things are. So I think those things are a little tricky, and we have to be very careful of them. And I'm also looking at the time, and I want to make sure we have time for practice. So can we, if there are any other comments bubbling away, can we post them on the forum afterwards? And yeah, go ahead and rest back. We're going to do some earth descent. So I just feel that earth descent really fully embodies the ask to find that middle way, to be still and soft and to really stay for a while. Okay, and Tina, I see your question here about incorporating it into our lives with many personalities and dramas, and I'm just making a note of that and making sure I have it here in my notes so that I can make sure I respond to that. It lets me here. Okay, so you're lying down on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. And here we can automatically start to sense into those yin principles of being soft, feeling that sense of ease in our body, sense of relaxation. And let yourself feel the earth supporting you underneath you. Feel your feet your pelvis, your elbows, your hands on your lower belly. Let your neck be comfortable. And we'll close our eyes to start to come really into our interior world. And then you're going to begin to breathe into all the pores of your body. And just notice where you feel any tight tension, tightness, gripping, any holding. And allow yourself to witness that. So no need to fix or change it in any way. Just let the awareness of that tension or discomfort, let that light of awareness come to it and see what happens. So breathing into your body, noticing what you find, maybe space, maybe tension, maybe tightness, maybe pain, and allowing the light of awareness to shine a gentle and tender light on it. And notice what happens when that light of awareness brings attention to what you find. What you might find is the tension unravels a bit, begins to ease and let go, maybe a little, maybe a lot, maybe fully, maybe it begins to dissolve downward into the earth. And inevitably, sometimes it might stay the same too, in which case you continue to attend to it. But if it does dissolve and release and let go, inevitably another area will reveal itself for you to attend to. On the in-breath, you're going to be present throughout your body. You're going to feel the tension. And as you breathe out, you may feel the tension releasing and letting go. Then you're going to start to breathe into the lower belly. Feeling your breath coming into your lower belly, a space midway between your pelvic floor and your navel. And as you breathe into that space in your lower belly, just feel the space opening. Feel it more towards the back of your body than the front of your body. And also feel your body softening around it. Then as you breathe in through that space in the lower belly, as you breathe out, follow the breath down and out into the earth underneath you. From that space in the lower belly through the back of the pelvis. So in breath through the lower belly, out breath descends down and out into the earth underneath you. And it can be useful to use your imagination. You can follow your breath down and out, or you can follow the pull of gravity, you can follow tension down and out. With each breath out, you relax a little bit more fully down and out into the earth, letting your whole body relax around you. Each time you breathe out, you relax, you release a little bit further, your body relaxes a little bit more, it opens a little bit more. And you descend a little bit more in all directions, down and out into the earth. And so using these principles of yin too, your body softens. You'll notice a deepening stillness in your body. In terms of that middle way, there's an awareness that's available to you. There's that kind of mindfulness that's following this down and out movement, down and out into the earth. And we're just staying for a while with this down and out into the earth, to the still and vast space of the earth. While our body softens, and we will also notice as you drop down and out into the earth that although it's this kind of vast spaciousness that might feel a bit disorienting, there's a quality of softness to it as well. You might notice that it feels very still, it feels very soft. So just notice how the space of the earth underneath feels to you. Does it feel soft? Does it feel still? Does it feel really empty and open and vast? Just notice how it feels to you. And also notice that the deeper you go, the more these qualities are available to you, that your body relaxes and opens more. The more yin-like the space of your body feels to you as well. So let your body feel into the space of the earth. Stay with the feeling of it. Stay with the felt sensation of the earth. So each time you breathe out, your somatic awareness is opening to a deeper level. It's still your body, and it's still your somatic field that's opening. And there's a sense that your body is opening to the earth underneath you, very gently opening down and out in all directions. And as we said earlier, this is not anything that you have to strive to do. Although you need to keep your focus, when what you discover as you descend down and out into the earth is that there's really no effort required. This is a process of surrendering, and your awareness is already deep in the earth. There's no difference between you, little you on the surface, and the awareness of the earth. That these two things are not separate, the earth body and your experience of your body. So your awareness already exists deep in the earth, and you're just opening to that. Notice that this is a reciprocal relationship, that the relationship between you and the earth is not separate. So it's not that you have to relax, little you has to relax. It's that as you open this connection to the earth, you are relaxed and open and soft and still. So notice the feeling of relief that happens as you deepen this awareness of your connection to the earth. Because in reality, keeping yourself restricted in this kind of tiny idea of who you are, running around, making everything happen on the surface of your life is a lot of work. And as we practice practices like earth descent, we get to let that all go. We get to open into something more vast, more spacious, more aware, softer, more still. And you'll start to feel that sense of home here. So keep opening, keep staying present. The backside of your body has dissolved, and it's like the body on the surface is experiencing the full measure and depth of itself, of its connection with the earth. So there's much more stability and openness, spaciousness, emptiness. And you can keep surrendering and sinking and dropping, opening this very deep level of awareness, very deep under you. And you may feel resistance or popping back up to the surface. That's very normal part of the process, and just feel into that. That's like like I was talking about in the talk, that in order to know softness or in order to know surrender, you must also know its shadow side. So it's important to feel into these, not to push them away, to feel into resistance, to feel into holding back, because in feeling into them, we can let go. So feel into those boundaries, feel into those places where there's holding back, feel into that resistance. Because in really coming to know those, you eventually they do drop away, and you can let go and fall further and drop and open more. And also know that this is an interconnected reciprocal relationship. So it's not you going down into the earth, it's not you doing something, it's an interconnected body that's not separate. So you are descending, but the earth is also calling you down. And you will probably feel that sense of pulling. Maybe it will feel like a sense of yearning. You may actually feel it as a physical pulling in your body. So feel that longing in your body, feel that yearning in your body, feel it and allow yourself to be pulled deeper to that connection that's pulling you home, that's pulling you deeper into that place of interconnection, where you're being called to your fuller sense of self, or your fuller sense of embodiment. And then just let go of all techniques and all doing, and just feel into this space deep in the earth, feel into this sense of embodiment. And then check in with your body. And when you feel ready, make your way up to seated again. Okay, just a few items of housekeeping before we say goodbye this morning. So, this is our final meeting in this format. I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of things. I'm not really sure what's happening with the switchover. To be honest with you, what's holding us up right now is some issues with this existing software and being able to switch from this software to the new software. And that's, to be totally honest with you, one of the main reasons that we're moving is that it's outdated and it's not a very good support. Like in terms of turnaround time for tech support, we're like 3 days between response to support, and it's very frustrating for us right now. So where we thought we would be right now and where we actually are is not anywhere close, and they just are not providing adequate support. So I really hope we can still go live on November the 1st, but I'm not really sure. But regardless, I think, Paige raises an important question, which is like, I still think that, this will look similar on the new site. So a site tour could still be useful, but we're kind of day by day right now. So what I did want to draw your attention to is the live classes. So I have posted the advanced study. There's a description of the first classes that will be running on November 26th to December 18th. That has been posted now, so you can have a look at it. And then also the application has been posted as well. Take a little bit of time. So we were talking a bit about how to arrive. There's the how to arrive is built into even the discernment process of, is this course right for me? It's, that process of centering and grounding before you determine if, yes, I'm a good fit for this. And then if the answer is yes, then you can turn to the application here. Then you will just copy and paste from here down, and you'll email it to me here. What I've suggested that you do too is that even once you have filled it out, not to send it off right away, but to sleep on it for a night, check it over the next day, see if there's anything you want to edit, add, or take away before you send it on. Okay, so you've got lots of time because the course doesn't start till November 26th, but I realize I should probably put a date in that I need it by, so that, right, like November 25th, it doesn't really give us enough time, so there's a limit to 12 in each course. So I'll put a date in there when I need those applications by. Are there any questions about that right now? Oh, yeah, any questions about this right now? Oh, I've got you all muted. No, I don't. Do I? No, someone muted someone. And the other thing is that in the live classes, that we will still be having the indulgence once a month. And so it'll still be the third one of every month, although let's take a look at what the 1, 2, 3. That's what I thought. We're probably gonna have to do a different one for November because I'm going to be on retreat on the 3rd Sunday of November. So it will change for November. Otherwise, it will be on the 3rd of every month. Yes, it's still going to be the same times for the live classes, 9:30 p.m. on Mondays and 4 p.m. So that's all in there. Yeah. Okay. All right. If there are no questions at this time, Jennifer, do you have like about 10 minutes right now? Okay. If there are no other questions, then I will say goodbye to everybody. And if I could have Jennifer for a few minutes, that would be great. Thank you, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.